Hi, so this week we're looking at one of my favorite novels. The title is The Concubine by Elechi Amadi. So this novel is set pre-colonial. It's set before colonialism, so to say. The setting will be revealed to us the more we read. The more we read, it's not reviewed at the beginning, but the more you read, the more you get the gist of the setting. Anyway, so this novel has a number of main characters, but the main character is called Ihoma. Ihoma is a very beautiful young lady. So the novel starts off with her husband, Eminike, walking home. So Eminike was the ideal man. He was every woman's desire. He was hardworking, he was good looking, he was well mannered. He was the man that every parent would give an example of, especially like for parents that had male children. That always point to Eminike as prestige character or prestigious character. Even when there were any errands to be run, they would always go to Eminike because he was very honest and very good looking. So Eminike is going home late in the evening, and on his way home he hears some sounds in the bush. The period in which he was going, like the period when he was heading home, there was some sort of initiation or ritual that was supposed to happen. So the woods were filled with thugs. I think I can call them thugs or warriors, who were in charge of capturing people and taking them for this rite or ritual. So when he heard this sound, he immediately thought it was those people. When he heard this sound, he became very cautious and conscious of his surrounding. Lo and behold, his old rival Madume appeared. So Madume was a typical lazy African man. He was so lazy that he could not even finish thatching his huts. His produce, like his farm produce, was always small. His yams were always small. And he was just lazy and very aggressive. But he was well built. He had muscles and all that. Even though these muscles were not working as they're supposed to. So Madume was married to Wolu, and they had only girl children. And because they only had girls, Madume didn't even, I feel like his other reason for not building enough houses and putting in effort in farming was because he feared that his daughters would get married off and no one would inherit his property. So he didn't put in any much effort in building houses or acquiring a lot of produce from his farms. He was very lazy. He let his wife do most of the work. So Madume meets Eminike, and they have some sort of rivalry. Madume claims that Eminike's land is his. Like, he claims that the land that Eminike has and has been farming on is his land. So he promised at a previous time they met, or previous confrontation they had, Madume promised Eminike, saying he was going to beat him up. So him meeting him in the forest was just him trying to fulfill his promise that he was going to beat Eminike up. But again, we are told that Madume was also envious that Eminike married Ihoma, since Ihoma was considered the most beautiful girl in the village. So you can imagine, these are two attractive people, Ihoma and Eminike, and they decide to get married to each other. So that had Madume very jealous. His theory is he saw Ihoma first, but Eminike decided to marry her even when he knew that Madume wanted Ihoma. So Madume had all this envy towards Eminike, and that envy brewed into hatred. So they meet on Eminike's way home and they get into the fight. So they fight for a while. Eminike manages to wrestle Madume, and he manages to throw Madume to the ground. You know the Nigerian way of wrestling, where if you need to throw your opponent down, then you'll be considered a winner. So Eminike manages to throw Madume down to the ground, and this last time when he throws Madume down to the ground, he thinks he's won the fight, but Madume gets up and he throws Eminike And in the process of Eminike falling down, he hits his back on a tree trunk. After Madume saw that, because after Eminike hit himself, he fell down and he was some sort of unconscious. The pain was so bad that he couldn't get up. So Madume runs away because remember, as I said, Madume was a typical African lazy man and he was a coward. So Madume runs off, leaving Eminike in that bad situation. So after a few minutes, Eminike manages to gather some strength and he goes back home. And from the way he was looking from that fight, you would assume he was in a fight with a leopard, and that's exactly what his wife thought. She thought he was fighting a leopard. So anyway, he gets back home, and his condition worsens as days progress. So on the third day, they find a traditional healer. I'll insert his name. I failed to pronounce it. I'm going to insert the traditional healer's name. So they call this the traditional healer comes and he charges them 2 manilas to attend to Eminike. So he does his rituals and he prescribes some medicine and he goes. Then again, another traditional healer, the one they consider the strongest rainmaker, Nuo Keroro, that's his name. He was the priest for Amadioha. He was the chief priest for Amadioha. So he was well respected, even if he had a stutter. So Nuo Keroro comes and he tells Eminike, I know you've already been attended to, but we can also try offering some sacrifices to Amadioha. Amadioha is considered the Lord of the Rain, God of the Rain. He is the most feared god in their village and in neighboring villages. In fact, we're told Nuo Keroro was challenged by one of the other rainmakers, because Nuo Keroro was a rainmaker. He was challenged by one of the rainmakers and he managed to bring the rain with lightning. So he was feared amongst his peers. So finally, Eminike feels better, and he and together with other elders decide to go and offer their sacrifices to Amadioha. Initially, after Eminike was feeling better, he needed to go and give thanks to Amadioha. So that's what they went to do. So they went to the shrine to go and give thanks. On their way there, the elders plus Nuo Keroro, the chief priest, they actually call him Koro. I don't know if it's Koro or Roro, in short. As they're heading there, they come across the spot where Eminike and Madume were fighting. And one of the elders passes a comment like, what was happening here? It looks like elephants were stomping or something. It's like the area where Eminike and Madume were fought from was so damaged. It looked like there were big animals that were fighting there. So anyway, they pass that spot and they reach the shrine. When they reach the shrine, when Eminike and the elders were going, Eminike carried a chicken, a cock, and some yam, and together with the other elders. So when they reach, Nuo Keroro enters the shrine and he starts his rituals. He starts paying his respect and his rights. And Eminike noticed that each time Nuo Keroro would come out and look towards their direction, the other elders would always look away and try to avoid eye contact. But Eminike made a mistake and looked directly into Nuo Keroro's eyes when he was performing his rite. And in his eyes, he saw so many things. He saw death, he saw life, he saw hatred, he saw love. He saw a combination of different things just by looking into his eyes. So anyway, Nuo Keroro is done with his ritual, and they decide to now boil the chickens and fowls and yams that they came with. And after Nuo Keroro was done boiling, he then took a wing. He cut a wing from one of the chickens and threw it near the shrine. And a big snake appeared and ate that piece of meat, that wing. The snake came and ate the wing. So anyway, a few days later, is it a few days or a few weeks later, Eminike dies. And at the beginning, we're not told what killed him. So we are just told there's a funeral, Eminike is dead, Ihoma is crying. And remember I said Ihoma was very young. So she was so young. She was like, she should have been around 21 or 24 years old. She was young. She got married very early. So she's crying and she just can't believe that her husband has died. And as per tradition, people needed to come and pay their respects to the young widow, or if any person loses their partner, the villagers had to come one at a time to come and pay their respects. So on this fateful day, Wolu, who is Madume's wife, comes to pay her respects. Now, remember, Madume is being blamed by both Ihoma's relatives and friends that he's the cause of Eminike's death, even though the chief priest keeps saying he died of a locked chest. But then this locked chest came about because of the fight that they had. So Walu, Madume's wife, was feeling so guilty that she felt uncomfortable to go and visit Ihoma. But anyway, Ihoma was a very nice person. In fact, at the beginning of the novel, we're told she knew she was very beautiful, but she was never arrogant. In fact, she was one of the few women that would stand up for fellow women in a fight, and she would always try to break the fights and make sure there's peace amongst them. In fact, there was even a time that Walu went to Ihoma's house to have her hair done. That was before Eminike died. So anyway, this time around, when Walu comes to visit, she's filled with so much grief, and she's apologetic on behalf of her husband. But even if he's not the one that murdered him, his actions led to the death of Eminike. So anyway, she tries by all means to avoid the conversation or bringing up the fact that Eminike is dead, but the conversation always led to that. So she could not even stay any longer. She decided to leave early. On her way out, she's met with Ihoma's mother. I'm going to say her name also. I forgot to pronounce it. She's met with Ihoma's mother. And the first thing that Ihoma's mother does is curse her and get upset and say things like, why has she come to see you? Is she mocking you? Is she mocking the fact that your husband is dead? And all that. So Ihoma's mother even starts saying things like, I regret allowing Eminike to marry you, because if he hadn't married you, you wouldn't have been, if you had gotten married to someone else, you wouldn't have been a widow at a very young age. So anyway, that happens. Then we're introduced to another character. His name is Ekweme. So Ekweme is also one of the attractive men in the village, and he's a very good singer. So Ekweme also decides to go and visit Ihoma. So Ekweme used to stay with his mother and his siblings, and he was the best friend to the village. What name do they give this guy? He was the best friend to the village clown, but the village clown was also a very good singer. So I can't wait to tell you more about Ekweme. So see you in the next video.